In July 2005, Science Minister Dr. Brendan Nelson announced the federal government's plan to build a radioactive waste dump on one of 3 Department of Defence sites in the Northern Territory. There'll be no further mucking about. The Australian government is absolutely determined to make sure once and for all that one of these 3 sites is chosen.
They're making Aboriginal people to say yes, go ahead and dig that hole and check the rubbish, But Aboriginal people don't want it, They don't want that rubbish here.
Fear for indigenous people is that an accident may happen on or around a sacred site, on or around country, and that they would never be able to go back to that country.
Why on earth can't people in the middle of nowhere have low-level and intermediate-level waste?
Australia's not an empty land. There are people living on the land.
It's going to affect our water system. That's why we're frightened.
We've got a very sad and tragic history of nuclear energy that should not be allowed to continue. Our people have still been living like we have been living our traditional way of life for so many years. The kinship system is very strong because you got Murrugadui, which is landowners, or not so much landowners. We don't own the land, we belong to the land. There's land managers and Korungula, which is caretakers. Their role and responsibility remains the same. The governance structure that our people maintain and continue to maintain and live is very much alive and very much the same as it was with our ancestors.
Our stories are connected with Mount Everard, which in the traditional Aboriginal laws is, we call it Ultira, the dream time. The tracks of our ancestors go sort of down towards the end of our property and meets up with another traditional story, that's the emu. They meet up around that area where there are 2 underground rivers.
Yeah, the old people are living all around this whole area working, helping set up the stations. Things like tanks, bore sites, bores, they did all that work without any full pay in monetary terms. They just did that not just did it, but they worked really hard for flour, sugar and tea. Their way of saying that they could stay in their own area of country as well without having to be moved somewhere else.
If this proposed site is selected, the damage that will be caused, whether they're going to dig down into those water levels or what, because eventually those 2 creeks or rivers follow the basin down to Lake Eyre. Aboriginals in the old days didn't travel around with canteens or anything to cart their water. They just knew where the water was. And this was one of the areas that I was told about when I was a kid, where I could go if I wanted to look for water.
Government's laws are always restricting us from carrying out our own role and responsibilities, or traditional role and responsibilities as land managers and land carers. But that's something the government will never ever take away from us. And I think we can sit here forever and a day talking about the fact that this land was never ever given up to the white man. It was never ever given up.
It's going to affect our water system. That's why we're frightened.
I think it's time Australia says no, people say no. Look, this is what it's done to us and the effects of atomic testing and the fallout. Places like Maralinga, Emu Field, Montebello. It's just extraordinary to know and think what government has done to people without asking.
Atomic testing at Maralinga there, it went over 1,000 k's. Not just one way, it just went right around how the wind changed. And there's a big area that's poison now, which they can't clean up.
How do you now manage a land if it's going to be infested with the storage of nuclear waste? It will have poisons, so to speak, attached to it for sort of thousands of years.
Today there's still a lot that's pretty sick.
Still today. They're making Aboriginal people to say yes, go ahead and dig that hole and check the rubbish, But Aboriginal people don't want it, They don't want that rubbish here.
That'll be poisoning and sickening the land, whether it's stored on top or whether it's stored below.
If there's a spillage, it'll still have that same effect on the land, and they can just get mop and bucket and just clean it up just like that with J-Sol or whatever.
The government should come and have a look and talk with the Aboriginal people, sit down and Aboriginal people, talk to them. Proper one, you got to understand Aboriginal people do. We live in here on this land, We're never going to run away. We're going to live here till we die.
The land will be sick. If the land's sick, the people will be sick too.
How long does it take to clean up the country? Over 1,000 years? It's going to affect our little area, from going out for bush tuckers, going out for kangaroo, goanna.
They're going to make no good water inside the ground. We're all going to get sick,
What radiation does is damage the molecular structure of genes, which can lead to development of malignancy and cancer later, or it can damage the genes in the eggs and sperm to produce genetic disease in the next or future generations.
I got my business, and I do breaking horses with my boys, and we had a couple of cattle still here, we do branding and command marks and like that we do here.
We have to be taught as a generational thing. The grandparents teach the grandchildren and so forth, so that the law continues on that land.
We've not been told about this waste dump out here, if they select this site, of just what the quantity of waste that's going to be put down there. I don't think they've told anybody in any of these sites that where the people are being terrified of their sites being selected.
I heard it on a little bit on the news. I was just thinking they're going to chuck just rubbish, just rubbish, like if I got that drum with rubbish and chuck them in the rubbish hole, They're going to chuck this waste. It's a poison. They can kill anyone, and that's why I was really frightened when the land council come to me.
Well, the Luke's Heights reactor has been a filthy reactor, and I've written about it. They reprocess radioactive fuel there. Now, what does that mean? They take out the uranium fuel rods that are very, very radioactive, having been in the reactor and being fissioned. They melt them in concentrated nitric acid, and from that they remove various elements. When you fission uranium, you make 200 new radioactive elements, all of which are much more dangerous.
Well, most of the uranium, it goes overseas, but it's going to come back one way or another. What we don't want is the leftover rods to come back and be dumped in our area. They should just leave their rubbish in their own backyard.
We will get sick, we will start having bad luck, we can pass away, our elders can pass away the land will then be run down and degraded. Our children won't have a sense of identity, a sense of place within the country, and our grandchildren won't have anywhere to go hunting, to learn stories, to learn dances and songs.
So they're going to throw everything down.
Australia's not an empty land. There are people living on the land. We go hunting. We go gathering bush tucker. We'd like to take our kids out and show them the traditional lifestyle. But if they put a waste dump out here and something happens, then our kids are going to lose out on their culture. Our grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
That people in the Territory ought to be very suspicious about this whole nuclear dump coming to the Territory. I mean, originally we were told it's going to be low-level and medium-level waste. We know that. The medium-level waste is actually the rods that we are expecting back from France in Scotland in 2011. But let's face it, this is the thin edge of the wedge here. If we've actually got a dump built and operating in the Northern Territory in years to come that has low and medium waste in it, even though that medium waste we know is contractual waste, there's nothing to stop a future Howard or Costello government now suggesting that we will open the doors to the rest of the world. Certainly the justification is if we're going to lease the waste, then we ought to take back, if we lease the uranium, we ought to take back, the waste. There's also a view, I think, that even if we sell it, we should take other people's waste. We're a big island and we've got plenty of sparse land. Might be true, but all that land is connected to indigenous people through their spirituality. So it's not exactly our land, I don't believe, to play around with.
Oh, they was telling bullshit. When they was here, they reckon everything was good, clean. You can touch that big rock when that rock come and show everything, little rock there. Big one, shiny one, that was clean. Here again, that was really clean and you can touch it, just like that. And one little mission token for the bananas. That little mission showing something whistling. That's not the poison. That's only a little bit.
There's only ever been one visit by the government to Catherine. I think there's only ever been one visit to Alice Springs and to Darwin. And that was a big high sell and a lot of emphasis on how safe it would be, how there would be no risk. I do remember that the issue was raised was did the establishment of this waste dump mean that Australia was wanting to expand its nuclear industry? And that question was raised because I raised it myself. And the answer was emphatically no, absolutely not, And here we are 18 months later and we're looking at a huge nuclear industry in Australia.
Supreme scientific arrogance to say that we can find the answer to storing radioactive waste safely for 250,000 years, let alone 500,000 years.
The scientists said that there was nothing for us to worry about whatsoever, that it was perfectly safe. When we found that there was a possibility that for some reason they were considering this site, we decided that it was time to educate ourselves. And we found quite a few instances where this has just been a disaster in other places. So the same thing will happen here, for sure.
The La Hague facility, which we had a look at, which is where Australia's waste, current waste is being stored, they've had some problems there. The French officials, certainly for us, they were quite open, to the questioning and providing the information that, they've certainly had issues in the past where there's been leakages from that facility into some of their waterways and how they've had to deal with that. One of the areas that hasn't been looked at is the geology, which is so important. And the current sites outlined by the federal government in terms of the Northern Territory, certainly those sites in geology terms are just not right.
Both sites that the Commonwealth government's talking about, the one at Mount Everard and the one at Harts Range, both are in the middle of the desert. Yes, that's true. But also in the middle of the desert we have strong winds, we have flooding problems, we have high heat problems, We have access problems from bringing up from down south. Both countries are surrounded by outstations and indigenous communities. Both areas are major water catchment areas. Their water is still coming from underground, and everybody on both sides are still eating kangaroo, still eating printy, still using bush medicines, and still maintain their ongoing obligations to that land.
And we got special water too, you know, digging with sockets on the ground, you know. We got water too. Yeah, we're not the main place, you know, to can't drink water. Yeah, that one water might get poisoned too, you know. You can dig on plenty of water inside rather than river, you know, river again. That's how all people are living like that, you know. Yeah, you know. See, that minister don't listen to us too, you know. Or his second boss, when they come, he don't listen. When we tell them there's main water for us, you know. Our people are living under the water all the time. And we still know that water, you know, which spot to go.
Now, living near a nuclear waste dump, nuclear waste is composed of these very dangerous elements that are made in a nuclear power plant. One of them is strontium-90, which lasts for 600 years. It's radioactive, and if that leaks into an aquifer or an underground water system, and it's used for irrigation, strontium-90 is a calcium analogue. It's the same. It is the same to the body or to biological systems as calcium. So it gets concentrated thousands of times in the grass, thousands more times in the cattle, in their milk, thousands more times in children who drink the milk or lactating mothers. So if a mother's lactating and she gets strontium-90 in her breast, which of course she would because the body thinks it's calcium, that strontium-90 could mutate a gene in the breast to later develop breast cancer, regulatory gene. Then if the baby drinks the milk, then the baby itself is being exposed to strontium-90, which like calcium is deposited in bone, and so the baby later could develop bone cancer, or leukemia, which is cancer of the white blood cells, and they're made in the bone marrow and could be exposed to the radiation of strontium-90.
A disaster actually is what would happen if the site was put there. This huge drainage area that feeds aquifers and rivers and lagoons and creeks, quite a few farms just close by, they rely on the bore water for these crops. Our paddocks surround on all four sides of the nuclear waste proposed site. The cattle are sold to Indonesia and Malaysia. There's going to be a buyer's resistance to our cattle.
The federal government have been desperate to try and get some agreement about where this waste is going to go. We know that right across the breadth of the territory, people have objected to it. So they are desperate to actually get some Indigenous people and traditional owners, in accordance with the amendments they made last year, to actually put the waste on their land. So that's where I think Muckaty comes into this. We know that the Land Council have been talking to people at Muckaty Station. I'm not in a position to say whether they're the right traditional owners or not, but after talking to some of the TOs that were in Canberra a couple of weeks ago, they haven't been consulted and haven't been involved. So at this stage, I'm not convinced that everyone who ought to be involved is part of this.
Concerned by the lack of proper consultation and recent amendments to legislation, a delegation of traditional owners and community members travelled to Darwin to meet with the Northern Territory government.
Whoever was knowing things about this nuclear waste dump didn't come back to the whole traditional owners to tell them about this nuclear waste dump. I've got 3 other families here. We all got countries coming through there. We're not happy. You've got a border in the middle where it separates Northern Land Council region and Central Land Council region. And it only comes up halfway just where the Muckaty Land Trust, that's where the boundary cuts us off. But for us, people like us, we know where our country runs. We know where it starts from. Yet they separated the boundaries, separated the people from here and there. They're making us being Warramunga people. I'm being separated from my own country.
Traditional owners denied agreeing to offer Muckaty for the dump site at a meeting called by the Northern Land Council.
Yeah, we're all there. but they weren't talking about the nuclear waste dump. They said, we're here in this building now, it's all about the royalty distribution and everything else, and making an association for the Makati Land Trust. There were a pack of traditional owners in that building. There was 16 groups of 5 totems. And it wasn't clear enough for the traditional owners to know about it.
We know that one of the International Atomic Energy Agency's recommendations is that nuclear waste dumps should not be built without full and proper consultation. I've seen lip service. I've seen people from DEST come and provide PowerPoint presentations and hand out brochures to people, but they're very negligent, I think, in providing explicit detail about exactly what is going to happen at this waste dump.
They don't need the permission of traditional owners, so they're taking away the rights of traditional owners to veto, to say no.
Completely undermines the whole spirit of land rights, and it completely undermines culture, because if the traditional owners lose control of the land in those communities, then what have they got?
If we say no to anything, but the government will still go ahead, you know.
I think the government is very well aware of what our obligations are, but also because of their inherent policies of genocide for indigenous people, don't really care. It goes along with their plans of removing indigenous people off the homelands, removing their rights to land rights, removing their rights to govern their own communities. Our people, who are underfunded as it is, may be dazzled for a little while of big money being offered, but the actual ramifications to culture and country and access to country is really going to hit us really hard in the next 10 years.
We simply ought not to be considering imposing waste dumps on remote Indigenous communities simply because the Commonwealth argues it's out of sight, out of mind.
One government come out here, where the meeting just not far from that little, where the sign is, from Canberra. When he come around there, and he was just showing them the pictures, you know, and all them pictures, you know. Oh, you can use him with you can touch it with your hand, you know, when you're saying. I mean, you know, it's a clean picture. You know, like when you're taking a photo, you stand and clean, and you know, nothing happened, you know. And it's just showing that, and everything. It's not dangerous. It's not dangerous. And we're telling him, no, it's dangerous. You can kill anything. You can poison that water, and you can poison that ground. You can kill the trees and animal and the human being. I told him, black and white, they're gonna kill him. But he just never listened when we was telling that. Yeah. For me, I went right through. And when I tell him about that kangaroo meat, hey, that kangaroo, we'll see them all the time. It's our meat, you know. We live on that thing. You know, if I eat that, I'm not going to get poison inside of me. My body will go no good and rotten. And he said, no, I can eat that meat. He said, and you're just playing a game with me. Yeah, and I told him, no, what is a poison? And he said, no, I can eat that meat. Yeah. I forget that bloke come out here.
There's another very nasty one called cesium-137 that also lasts for 600 years. It's a potassium analogue, and every body cell is rich in potassium. So it can cause all sorts of muscle malignancies, brain cancers and the like, and it too concentrates through the food chain by orders of magnitude, thousands of steps at each time. So if you eat meat, for instance, that is concentrated cesium-137, you're at risk for developing cancer.
So you would have to wonder what is the motivation in trying to convince traditional owners that this is in the best interest of their land. If you actually seriously look at the connection of Indigenous people to their land, the songlines, the relevance, the sacred sites, you've got to seriously wonder why you would want to convince people, Indigenous people, to put this rubbish in there for hundreds or thousands of years on their land that they hold so dear to their spirituality.
He had one little machine there. He put that little machine on the banana and whistle again. See, we all got this one. I said, take your mission, what are they? On that big rock, oh, that might be that left of the poison thing, eh? Is that waste thing. He bring big rock, you know. And he said, you can touch it with no club on it, you know, with that picture here. You can touch that thing with no club on. I said, yeah, well, you touch it.
The way that it's been explained to us is that there's radioactive gigabytes in bananas. We're already living with uranium, so there isn't a problem. The only problem that Australia has is where to store it, that it's completely safe. There's nothing that's going to harm us. There will be no leakages. There will be no soil erosion. There will be nothing, absolutely nothing will happen to us.
Making fun of you when he's saying, when we're saying dangerous thing is a poison, you're going to kill anything. He said, you know, just saying that, you know, it's a danger. He's making warm with it, huh? A lot of people getting killed, huh? Just for nothing. They just kill them with them things. When they drink that water, they just get sick and just for nothing. That's why that bloke might want that thing poison to kill us, you know? We're going to have no people in this Australia.
We don't believe that in the public consultations people have been given full and detailed and accurate information about exactly what's going to be stored, how it's stored, or what, in fact, a nuclear waste dump in the Territory would look like. And we certainly know that from some of the people at Muckaty Station, whose relatives were taken to Lucas Heights, believe they were actually going to look at how you can better handle waste, like household waste and refuge. So when we talk about a dump all the time and waste, people actually thought they were going to Sydney to have a look at how their household waste could be better managed. So I don't think people clearly understand what this is about. I've been to Lucas Heights. I'm convinced that nuclear waste can be stored at Lucas Heights. It's there now. It should continue to stay there. And all that leads me to a great deal of suspicion about traditional owners perhaps not being fully informed and fully understanding, and therefore having not really, fully agreed to what's going on here.
The federal government has accepted the Northern Land Council's nomination of Muckaty Station. There are now 4 sites being assessed for the nuclear waste dump.
This is just the end of the trail for John Howard to remove Indigenous people off the country so he can sell uranium overseas.
The waste dump is absolutely central to John Howard's nuclear push. And the idea would be that Australia would expand its uranium, enrich it, keep the depleted uranium in cylinders in the desert, send the enriched uranium fuel rods overseas, and take back the high-level waste. This is the thin edge of the wedge. It is being talked about as if it is only a low-level waste dump for Lucas Heights. That in itself is unacceptable. But to use that as a way of pushing the door open to high-level waste storage is outrageous, and that agenda needs to be exposed.
It's not morally acceptable for Indigenous people to have to live with this waste.
In France, where they've amended all of their legislation, both with storage, transportation, and just the reprocessing of those rods, they've written the community in where a district or a shire is able to, if they wanted to, they could veto a proposed site happening in their area. Now, we don't have any such right in terms of communities being able to say, well, we don't want it in our area, so you need to go and look somewhere else.
They're never going to stop him. You're going to be poisoned all the time in that ground, you know? And you're going to kill a lot of people.
Stop what you're doing now. Listen to us. We got to protect this land. Wherever we come from, we always got to protect our land and the people that live on the land.
You know, people never going to live on this land. They're still going to poison us. When they dig that hole, they're going to destroy our dream, and we're going to have nothing left, you know. Because that white bloc, that's not his dream, and because he's smashing it for Aboriginal people's one, you know.
The land is telling us something. The land is sick. People are sick too. And we have to make changes now for a better tomorrow.
We don't want any sicknesses come through our country, any damages come through our country, any bad health come through our country, anything that's not healing us. It's the thing that's putting us down, and the spirits will run away from the country and leave us behind, and we'll be struggling to know what we used to do before.
Hello.